Career really started with Highgate Hotels, and also with Highgate Hotels, it started totally by accident. And at that point, Highgate was just one hotel, believe it or not, back in 2003. And really, the scope of revenue management was just evolving at that time. It was highly manual, and got to learn under some really good leaders in that company. And as that company scaled, we were lucky enough to grow with that company. I actually moved to San Francisco 3 years later, thereafter from New York, where Highgate bought its first asset, and then we started to grow into a lot more. Highgate Tech Ventures was also evolving, where Highgate's focus was a whole lot more on the technology side of it. And also our own draw was more driven towards it because tech is only as good as its user. So how do you kind of unpack a lot of these things on how do you really drive that adoption rate and don't half-ass it to a 5 on 10, but truly utilizing the system to an 8 on 10, 9 on 10 and doing it better. That's how we started to kind of really find our jam and make our own differentiation and our own identity in the market. And that got us through a lot of those ebb and flows of the market that was happening from 2009, 2010, and that driving that massive growth in all across like the hotels in San Francisco. And then after that, the next legs of the careers came, right? Like okay, you become a VP and then you kind of chase, okay, what is that next evolution for you in terms of talent? And you kind of you grow into a chief revenue officer, a chief commercial officer. And the question always comes is what's next and what's next and where do you find so you don't get complacent in a company, but you're always ahead of the curve and you're sharpening your pencil in a manner of you kind of want to stay ahead, but also want that ability to build a team underneath you that can do things better than you, faster than you, right? Because that's the only way a company kind of evolves. So that mindset was always there. And I have a student mindset, so I'm always learning. And that's how Mosaic kind of came into being of what Mosaic is today. And happy to talk about that one too now.
I would love that. And then I'd love to kind of go back and talk about some of the observations you had that led to founding Mosaic. But how would
Yeah.
you describe Mosaic for someone who maybe is kind of new to knowing about your company?
Yeah, absolutely. So Mosaic Hospitality is a commercial management company. We work across branded and independents across 22 markets for owners who have kind of done leaving money on the table. How we do is like we go into the hotels, like we fix the commercial engine, we run it, and we own the outcomes. And we operate in really three different practices. The first being commercial, everything that drives revenue, call it from revenue management, our sales to digital marketing, e-commerce, be it button pushing at a property level or a complete fractional C-suite oversight for a portfolio level. Second, we also do strategic assessments. This is something as if think of if you were going to buy an asset, what would all the things you would do in the asset that the incumbent may or may have not? And that's a highly deep dive structured audit for highlighting exactly where the performance is leaking, where do we have a competitive advantage, how do we really stack up against the market, the headwinds, the tailwinds, and the high impact opportunities, and the baby steps on how we kind of get there. And the third arm was the one is actually how we started Mosaic was technology and hotel tech stacks, closing the gap between what owners are paying for and what is actually performing from a marketplace to a core system that is truly more AI enabled.
I wonder if we want to start there or some other element of this. I'm always interested for people starting companies, what did you observe as being broken? And you touched on this on a number of levels, but what if we get into this a bit more? Because you've worked across companies, you've seen a lot of hotels, a lot of different contexts. It it feels like we're recording this in at the end of March 2026. It feels like if you look at the macro picture, there's headwinds, and I just get this feeling in all the conversations I'm having on this show that just business as usual isn't going to cut it. We got to do something differently. But you've been noticing this for a while. So what were some of the drivers and some of the dysfunction that you saw that led you to start Mosaic?
Yeah, so when we saw Mosaic, the first thing was we live and breathe the tech stack. So we know, and also working with so many leading companies, we kind of know how the contracts are written. What is the right MSA? What is the right price point? Which technologies have we utilized as a test case in an alpha mode, in a beta mode, etc. Having that base as a foundation, we didn't want to just go and say, here's like 20 different recommendations, go and pick one. What we wanted to do was first to kind of give them that scope of, Hotel Tech Report comes up with this very good report of, hey, these are all the systems in the market. And that kind of shows the hotel technology ecosystem is a total cluster F, right? So when you kind of see it together, we know that disjointed technology hub that's there is leading with outdated systems, broken integrations. There is expensive connectivities. There are too many options, revenue leakage, product confusion. And how do you kind of solve into those? By having a very clear way of, if I need a system and I need it to work with my existing ecosystem, this is how I need to reset my system. This is the price points that I would be paying now. This is what I would be paying based on the new contracts that we would sign. This is how an MSA should be written. So think of us like as a mini Costco. We went out, we negotiated the price points, I'd call it X cents on the dollar. We have a very small markup, but with that also we have the ability to make a little profit, but yet the end customer has the ability to buy it significantly cheaper than going with that technology system directly. And also it comes with more better and cleaner contracts. Second, we can stitch different systems together, which no one can do right now. So we are the only company that can do it. So for example, you want a PMS company and RMS company, or you want some other company and this together, we can do opaque pricing, where we have the ability to stitch different companies together under one cost per key per month and sell it to the end user. Thus, even the technology companies have the ability to come in a little lower on price point that they won't want to show publicly available. So we are an extension of their teams in those ways, plus stitch different technology points together that really adds up by having significant savings, yet they're obligated on taking these X number of systems together, which kind of feeds into all of these companies that even though they're not competitors and don't talk to one another, are being sold as a bundled package.
It's so interesting because I think whether it's on the technology side or the commercial strategy side, it feels one of the foundational parts of Mosaic is fighting fragmentation, right? In fragmentation, you have all these little silos, these teams, these technologies operating by themselves, and it's not
Yep.
nearly as powerful as operating together. Kind of earlier we were talking about how you're helping hotel owners with commercial strategy, right? End to end. And I was talking with Patrick Norton at Britain Resorts and Hotels recently, and it just really stood out to me. He's chief marketing officer, but oversees revenue, sales, and marketing. And that sort of combination of all of these functions together allows them to outperform. And it seems like you've kind of built your business on this theory. Tell us a little bit more about this, maybe on the commercial kind of strategy side, why it's so important to have sales, marketing, and revenue all working in concert.
Yeah. When revenue management started to evolve, like it really evolved out of sales and marketing and reservations, right? So there was this thing of, oh, now we are going to do these things better in this X manner, et cetera. And each market kind of trains a revenue manager very differently. When you were in New York City or when I was in New York City, it was almost where, okay, it's 90% transient, it's 10% groups. Revenue runs the show and we can and if Paul says no, then John is waiting in the line to take my reservation, etc. So there was always that competitive side of you of always driving that. Then you move to San Francisco and it's a very different market. It is a 40% group house and you have to work with sales and you have to learn to leverage a lot of these relationships in the market to kind of drive the business your way. And you still had that luck of having a very big corporate intake coming into the market from 2010 all the way to 2017, 2018. Then you go to markets like Hawaii, and it's very different, where practically everything is driven through wholesale relationships, and it's driven through a lot of leverages and static pricing that still goes into books that gets published in Japan and other places, how people book packages. So the mindset was very different, and that kind of started adding those little seeded dots that all of these departments need to come together for a unified strategy. And one of the things that always came as a gap was, how do you build a company or a department where everyone is kind of saying that same goal? And that was something we had to unpack again on what is that one goal that everyone should relate to and speak to and have that approach. And we kind of build that around NOI, that every person in all of our departments is speaking to that one unified goal, is driving that NOI component.
It's so interesting and so important to ladder everything up to that. I think I spend a fair amount of time at investment conferences, and I feel like I've been increasing my own understanding of that. But everything in the hotel business ladders up. It's a business, right? And it's a real estate business, and understanding how the money flows within the business, honestly, regardless of where you are in a hotel, helps you succeed, right? And so it's awesome to kind of see everything laddering up to NOI. Now, I think some of the structural factors that you described are somewhat timeless, or at least like over the years or maybe even decades, some of those factors have remained. We're also in a very dynamic world. And, again, recording this in 2026, I want to help our listeners really understand what they should know and, more importantly, what they should act on given some of the new technology, some of the new opportunities that have emerged. Maybe starting with discovery. I think at some recent conferences, it's been interesting to see data from Focusrite and others talking about the rapid quarter over quarter increase in people turning to LLMs for discovery. And then we have now AI agents acting on behalf of people. It feels like this space is evolving quickly. I've appreciated learning from you on this. I wonder if you could explain for our listeners, maybe starting with discovery, kind of what's changing here, what should our listeners be thinking about and doing to succeed in this new world?
Absolutely. So the first thing is a lot of people get really kind of taken away. Oh my God, that the discovery is being impacted, etc. So where are we today? Traffic across a lot of our websites are down probably close to 30%. But that discovery part or that decline on the web traffic is not uniform as a whole. Like the brand searches, like your loyalty searches, or like those are stable. Where we are seeing the shift is that zero click shift, which means that nearly 60% of all of the searches end without a click because you're getting that answer directly from an AI search. Think about it. In the past, you went to Google, you asked a question, you got 10 different blue links, you clicked on it to get that answer. Now Google has the ability through its AI mode to give you that answer. So it's not that it's being disrupted. It is more that there's more structured data available for AI to read through. And there's more of data aggregation happening on the back end that you have the ability to read through it. So discovery funnel is being hit that hardest. Queries like, hey, what are the best hotels in X are like seeing that biggest disruption because Google is answering a lot of those questions for you. So that battleground for the discovery shift has truly changed from SEO ranking to really to AI recommendation for its own visibility.
It's so interesting. I guess like in that world with this shift happening, what does it take to win, in 2026, 2027? What should our listeners be doing right now?
One of the biggest things on our end that what we say is ensure that your contextual intelligence is very strong. And what we mean by that, a lot of the FAQs, start with the FAQs. That is foundational for the websites. Because right now, like we talk about websites being glorified brochures, and we are going to look back 3 years from now when every hotel website is going to be its own AI agent and it kind of changes the whole look and feel of a website based on how we talk. And we'll talk about it. How do we live like this for the last 20 years of just having a brochure and paying companies X and X's of dollars for doing so and just having with the simple word of schema and SEO on the back end, and this is what you pay, right? So I think that part of it is going to significantly change. Going back to where we believe that fundamental shift comes through contextual intelligence is speaking to a customer in a manner that how you and I are actually conversing now. For example, what is your cancellation policy? This is cancellation policy. No, you explain it in the right way. Like if you're booking these plans, this is the cancellation policy. If you plan to come in this period and you're booking this is what it is. The more structurally available data, the way we put out, the more questions we think through what a customer is truly asking, and we are answering those things and we are placing it on the website in that same manner. AI is going to give a lot more citations into those and pull that data out from the same way. It's like it is the same way what we talk about what is AI today using to read a lot of this information. We talk about Reddit, we talk about Wikipedia, like we are seeing even LinkedIn, right? Where like you're seeing different posts. We did an audit for one of the properties as an assessment. It was weird. It took like it under indexed the property because of its reviews, but it took reviews from BBB. And then we had to question it. Why are you taking BBB? Because then it again gave an answer to say, hey, because this hotel has had so many problems, it was an anomaly that so many people complained in BBB, and because of it, it kind of ranked it lower. So you can see a lot of different things are happening. So if you don't do anything, you are in trouble, and if you do something not right, you're still in trouble, right? Think again, I'll give you an example. If Jay, you are planning to go, let's say to Hawaii, and it gave you a recommendation of staying in Hotel X, and for some reason you just told it, you know what, like I don't like this hotel and don't recommend me. And that's it. And you're done. That property is not going to show up for you in your AI. Now, unless you have done something truly awesome on the back end as a hotelier to kind of say why it is building that case for it and all these things on how it responds to reviews and how it talks through it, then you're in a better position to answer it, or it will be in a better position to counter. But otherwise, it is just set and done and it's over.
It seems like this is a lot more content that needs to be created. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm thinking about all the different, back to your point of all the scenarios, things to talk about, things people might be asking. That feels like a lot more, as a marketer, that feels like a lot more stuff to create. Am I wrong there? And if so, or I mean, if that's the case, like, what is that? How do you exactly create all that content?
Yeah. So this is the thing, right? So AI is not static, right? So that is the one thing that we have to learn. It is changing constantly. What worked last month is probably irrelevant, right? So what hotel truly needs is they need a AI champion. That's someone who can test those tools, learn fast, fail fast, build best practices, train the teams continuously, right? And they're allowed to fail and they're allowed, but they fail also smart, right? So things like those are something so important that foundationally it makes sense, but at an execution level, it always fails. And that's what we kind of go back to. Like the first step is before you talk models, prompt, or automation, your first step is to clean that data. Because if the data is bad, the AI will be bad, right? So we kind of go through it in that way of let's go back to the basics. We'll talk about the cleansing of the data before we can take these steps forward into building into this world of AI.
Interesting. I guess like something else that comes up for me when I'm thinking about this is brand and how do you escape just being a commodity, right? If these agentic AI tools are just searching on criteria, what role, if any, does brand play as part of that process?
So that's an interesting question, right? I may answer it a different way. So one of the things where it happens is what we get asked in that same context is where do we start, right? Because oftentimes it is so theoretical that we miss that knowledge of okay, oh, it's got to do this and all this data has to come. Where do I start? What do I do? And we kind of go back to the foundational layer of how should we be working with AI, and that just starts with auditing first where your system and your data lives. Learn to understand what your data is made of and clean that bad data. Standardize that structure. And all of these, while it's easy to say it, it is a very tedious task to go through. Then you're connecting the systems of all that data that is coming in. Where do we store it? Centrally. And that's a very important part. Who controls that access to that data thereafter? And then finally, then you have AI ingest that data, right? So we kind of say, and most of our thoughts as hoteliers goes into, I will do it into Excel, right? And that's that first thought. Oh, I'll report all these things and I'll just put it in a share drive and that's it. And that's not how AI works. And we kind of go back to that same foundation. You have to think cloud data warehousing. You need to work with companies like Snowflake or Redshift, and that becomes your central home for hotel intelligence, which is really powered by human intelligence, right? So all of that, like when you go to the foundation to store it centrally, it is secure, it is scalable, you have some level of governance on it. And then you can connect the AI tools and models to read into it. So we kind of like unpack a lot of this first before we even tell hotels this is your roadmap into 30, 60, 90 for AI, because the reality is your 30, 60, 90 is just cleansing of the data and building that foundation.
So interesting. I'm going to throw up on the screen for those watching us on YouTube an illustration that you posted that stood out to me, and I really appreciate kind of how much you educate people on LinkedIn. But you had this notion that your hotel's data is the moat, and I wonder if you could walk through maybe for our listeners on audio, kind of what is the difference between generic AI and private AI, and kind of like what do you see playing out here?
Great question. So we look at this. So on a generic level, it is all your publicly available data, right? Every LLM, you take your ChatGPTs of the world, your Claude, your Gemini, etc., whatever you use, every LLM today is trained mostly on public data. So if everyone has access to that same level of intelligence, the tool is not the advantage. Where that advantage starts to come in is who owns better data, who is structuring it better, who controls it, and who can truly activate it faster. That is the moat, right, to what we talk about. So what is our core foundation to it? In the future, it is not about who is using AI because everybody will. The future is going to be truly about who wins the intelligence behind the data. So if you're only using generic tools, you're really renting that intelligence, right, on your front. But if you're building and if you're protecting your own proprietary data layer, you're truly building an asset. And that's that differentiation. And why that matters as a whole is because that same level of the public data gives everyone a baseline. The private data creates you that separation. And in hotels, that private data can be broken into multiple arenas, right? From like think from your own PMS, CRS, CRO, RMS, all of these BI systems, your like your own guest behavior, your booking pace, the cancellation patterns, the spend behavior, room preferences, pricing elasticity, the length of stay trends, your off season versus peak seasons, like your upsell conversions. All of this is coming together. And hotels, even today, just still treat technology as just an application versus where it is heading tomorrow.
I find that fascinating. I want to dig a little bit further into this, but again, just for audio listeners, a good reason for people to watch this on YouTube. But for audio listeners, you have a great line in here on this image I have up on the screen that the structured proprietary data a hotel owns becomes a secondary valuation layer at exit. And so this notion, you mentioned before around everything ladders up to NOI, everything ladders up to valuation. This is a really interesting perspective on that. I think for the investors listening, you need to make sure that the people you're working with, the organizations you're working with, are building this into the workflow. I think there's clear operational applications of this and then commercial applications of this as well. But I do want to ask you, GB, I've heard about people talk about, hey, data gives you an edge. It could be an advantage for a little while. I'm very curious, like what specifically have you found that hotels need to work through to get to this point, right? Everyone says, oh, kind of data is very valuable, but what have you found needs to be worked through to get here?
Yeah. So the first thing that comes is, as we talked about, the first part is the cleansing of the data, right? And once you have it, and let's say once you have structured it in a manner, the value is not giving away your data. The value is controlling the sharing element of your data, right? And again, what does that mean? Like the meaning of it means your data stays yours in this case, right? The access is also permission based. It is used in a much secured environment as a whole, and it can train itself on your own internal models, and it can also power outside partnerships of your own team from your own team itself, right? So your private data then becomes the leverage that you have even on an exit. And why that matters financially to what we talk about proprietary data, think of it this way, right? This is not just a tech play, it is a valuation creation play, right? A value creation play. And no one is, and no one has kind of, and no one can come today and say, oh, we just know this, because everyone is learning. It's like cloud, right? Like just till 2 months ago, no one was using it. And now you have got so many people utilizing it, and it's doing insane things so much faster that you have the ability to create true value for what cloud can do by just simply training and make a lot of money off it, because there are no true champions, but we are in that first phase of adopters of that platform. So a clean proprietary data, when we think of this one, can be done to help the hotels to forecast better, to price better, personalize better. You can also drive a lot more, how do you say, like you can retail better, you can retain a customer better, you can throw out a lot more reportings better, and also yield better, right? So across the board, that shift in performance equals to, I would say, a better performance that lifts the asset value, right? And that first mover's advantage in this arena will become very important because no one is doing this. As smart hotel owners start to learn this, they will create a new tier of valuation that does not exist, because a lot of people just continue to talk about AI. Very few continue to build that foundation that will be worth anything.
I love it. I would love to bring this all to life with a case study, as a story of maybe a hotel or group that you've worked with, and you can share the name or not if you want. But I want to understand what this has looked like from the first touch points you had, the first steps you had in working with them, some of the process you took them through, and what were some of the outcomes?
At the most simplest part, I think a lot of people also talk about this on LinkedIn, but it often goes like even with AI, when we talk about best practices and things, and I'm happy to share on screen what we shared into our presentation so you can kind of see
That'd be great.
what that looks like. Give me a second and I'll share my screen with you.
I'm trying to do more screen sharings on the show because I feel like myself on YouTube, I'm actually really enjoying when people kind of walk through stuff
Yeah.
together.
Let me know when
So
you can see my
we're
screen.
good. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're good.
Okay. So what happens is we did this same thing on what is happening, right? We talked what are the seven moves that actually matter. We talked about website reviews, who is your champion on property, who's allowed to make those mistakes, how do we go in and address the FAQs? How do we measure that traffic? Because AI is not binary, so it's not like ROI. I spend this, I get this. You have to create your own ROI. And how do we challenge every partner? Because everyone today is AI enabled. I like just for demo purposes, I put this little star on Mosaic over here and says, "Hey, I'm AI forward, right? Hell, I'll buy mosaichospitality.ai and I'll call myself AI forward." So know the art of kind of differentiating between what is there. Photography is what I want to focus on. That photography is what sells, and that is your first impression outside of what AI is going to give you. Most of these hotels, think of it as seasonal properties, and they have a very different snow season to a mud season to a summer, spring, etc. Yet all of the photographies in most properties is static. How do we use AI to make those smarter? And how do we partner with agencies? And we did that. In some companies, we said, hey, we have dead space. And how do we bring it to life by doing something different and partnering with agencies? We had another property and we said, why don't we build a better package out for Valentine's Day and ideate what that could potentially look like? Our lobby may look empty and let's fill it up and showcase what is that social proof to an empty image. We have like a property that doesn't have a story and it has a pool inside with rooms facing inside. Let's bring the elements of everything that city has to offer inside into artwork and partner with local artists to bring that to life and ideate it. All of these things are simple iterations of what can be done. We wanted to say, hey, like our rooms don't have a separation between the living area and the suite, and how do we do it? Well, we can build it very simply with AI. Hey, I've got all this space outside, but we don't use water fountains anymore. It doesn't work. How about we put a garden space outside? But then the question comes to Julian, well, how do I go about doing it? AI helps you ideate a lot of these things faster. So it bridges the gap of speed to efficiency a lot more versus thinking on your own terms, because not everyone has the ability to ideate that same level or to that expertise level, and better prompting can help you get in those places. So that is something we feel very important as a foundational starting ground, how to start training your team to be better at prompts and use this to your advantage, be it for in-rooms, purifications, giveaways, promotions, upsells, and overutilization of dead spaces that currently have no value to you.
This is so interesting. AI as an ideation partner is fascinating. It's also funny, but with screen shares, you can kind of see how people bookmark stuff. And I see all the AIs. I see Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, see Meta AI. So it sounds like it
Oh,
looks
on
like
my thing of my
yeah.
day-to-day logins. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So
my.
so are you just trying them all? You're just out there building and everything?
So this is what's happening. So it's nowhere perfect right now, Jay, but I'll say it like this. Right now, we are entering this new phase. Think of AI like a meta engine is coming up, where I use, for example, ChatGPT knows the way I talk. So oftentimes it can write things exactly in the manner how I like it with the personas I like and the people who I look up to and how they talk, so that it understands it very better. Cloud helps me structure a lot of things, especially in presentations, especially in the way that we need to articulate it to owners and how those can come, like it can do it a lot faster. I use Gemini really for Nano Banana for a lot of the image creations. I use Meta AI when I want to create the images to videos and add a story to it. And then finally, as another layer, now you have got these agentic AIs that you can build yourself, your agents. It's very simple. Like you have to just take an hour or two in a day for maybe call it the next 2 weeks, and you can be really far ahead from T minus 14, right, to where you are now, a better version of yourself 14 days from now. And you can have then Gemini, ChatGPT, Cloud, argue with one another, re-come up with it, and the output that is coming has been vetted with your different personas of what you like this, what you like this, what you like this, and the output is furthermore refined because each challenges one another.
That I before we go, I would love to get your thoughts or advice from for two specific audiences. One is the operators. I know we talked a lot about commercial strategy, but before off air, we were talking a little bit about how you'll often come into environments. You're handling the commercial side, but then there's an operation side, guest services, like the whole running of the hotel. And I wonder. Then we talked about data and some data that operations might be able to collect, things like that. For you to operate in this sort of data enabled AI powered kind of operating with commercial excellence, what, if any, asks or needs do you have from the operations side of the business? And then I want to ask you about kind of some advice that you would have for owners and investors to think about this holistically. But for operators, kind of what would you like them to be thinking about?
I love it. And I have a screen for you to share that one too, because what we did was we did the same thing. So instead of me just saying it, let you also see it, because I think that will also help see what we're trying to get to. So in this same thing, what we did was the next step. So if you're an owner or if you're a management company, what is something you should be doing today that in this whole world of AI, right? So we kind of talked about data as the mode, and then we kind of go through what does good data sandbox actually look like for you, and how's it structured? Ask the right questions. Like, it starts by asking the right questions and not saying, what are we doing about it? And is your data being pulled in real time? Is it just month-end reports? Is your data also is like all of the contextual intelligence that we talked about? And then from a team owner perspective, like we really hound on it a lot deeper. If you're an owner of an asset, like where is that next great idea going to come from? It is not going to come from all these presentations we do. It's come from team members who are allowed to mess up and fail, right? That is very important. And are we allowing that culture to fail? And that's the alignment that we start at a foundational level of doing basics right. Right. And does your team even have that permission to experiment? Because oftentimes what happens, we are in such a budget mindset. Oh yeah, we have put $500 a month to do AI. But then what do you do with AI? And what ends up happening in a lot of these places is truly, I'll show you this slide, right? What happens in the world of an owner? Month one, oh, like we bought the tool, then it's a big launch and it's 1 day of training. It's awesome. On month three, okay, like the reports are generating, okay, and some of the leadership is reviewing, and a lot of talk about where the data says and what it's saying. But it's turning into not more something like revenue management. It's more of revenue justification. Oh, this is just data, but there's nothing quantifiable that you're doing with it. And then
Interesting.
what
And
happens?
GB, just for audio listeners, so you have kind of, this is a big problem you see is the set it and forget it. Like there's a lot of
Yep,
energy, like we'll buy the
exactly.
technology, some reports start coming out and then staff kind of start going back to the
Yeah.
old way. And then,
Because we are
it just,
wired that way, right,
yeah.
Jay? We are wired. Like, think of every system we buy today in hotels. It is set and forget. You buy a PMS system, you buy an RMS system. Yeah, there is some little upgrades that come. But these things that AI is changing every week. There is something so disruptive that almost like even for this presentation, like we joke about it, we did in Delaware, I had to change this presentation 3 times in 2 months because stuff I put in there becomes so irrelevant. This I can share with you. It's only a week old now, right? So at least that is still relevant to your listeners. But what happens is in month 9, vendor is collecting the checks, things go silent, and then the hype is just sold, right? And the budget season comes, then the hotel tells the owner, oh, there is no ROI, like it failed our expectations. And what does the owner say? Well, let's just cut it and move on, right? So this is that mindset. What we have today is very much in a set and forget model because that's how we are trained in hospitality. In the world of AI, it is very different. We are today what a modem used to be for the internet and how we used to connect to the internet. For those who know a modem from 1990s, that's where we are in the AI race today and what the internet is today, right? So there is so much to come. There is so much to evolve. Those who are going to be ahead of it are going to truly capitalize on what this is to offer. And the last part, you wanted to also know from an owner perspective, what you should do is what we talked as an operator, right? Back to the same things of what are the requirements when we take a commercial strategy that we have the ability to do? How do we position the website at a very basic fundamental level that is AI ready? How do we talk to reviews? Because that is a place that most people don't understand. How big is reviews for AI to read through on how you respond, whether it's generic, it's going to hurt you drastically going forward, whether you have solved into a problem. Because if a hotel has a problem, but you're answering it on how the hotel is solving it, it is going to give AI the credibility to say, no, like we understand that the hotel had issues, but we see from the reviews, from the management responses, they are addressing it in 7 different ways because we have seen it across multiple platforms. But everywhere if we say, oh, we are so sorry you had a problem, like we take these things seriously and we have shared it with the management, well, you are going to be in the dust months from now and you won't even realize what hit you.
So interesting. I feel like we could talk for hours, GB. So I feel like what I want to do is point our listeners to where people can learn more about you and your work. I feel like I learned so much from you on LinkedIn. But is LinkedIn the best place? Would you point people elsewhere?
Yeah, our own website for Mosaic Hospitality, like it has a link. Just schedule a demo. Just talk to us. We are not in a place where we are like, oh my God, we want to win every account. We want to have good partners that are invested in the mid to long term. But if you're looking for a short-term solution or consultants, we are not that company for you. But if you want an owner-centric mindset that is powered by human intelligence on what is going to drive the future of hospitality, talk to us.
Excellent. I'll include some links in the show notes. Really good to see you, GB. Thanks for making time to chat with me.
Thank you, Jay. Take care.
Bye.
Cheers.